Hey everybody, what's happening? It's your buddies Thor and Dooman. Dooman is sleeping right now. He does a lot of that these days. So we're just popping in to say hello. I'm not gonna make it too crazy long. Just wanted to touch base on a couple things since we've been out. Dooman had his eyes removed. He had them replaced with prosthetics. Because the pressure in his eye was so great. So he's not been healing quite as well and as fast as I had hoped he would. So, it's just been been a tough rehab. So we are in the healing phase, and have been working on my education on how this world really works and how everything is based around banking. Specifically, the courts are really not courts, they're really banks. And everything is, based on commerce. And everything is a commercial action. These are the things that are true. And when we start to understand that, we can start to navigate this world a little bit better. Because right now, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. They are changing the social landscape of this country, this nation, very quickly with this corona ruse. The flu season is back and they are ramping it up like nobody's business. But I'll tell you, still, even though they are putting out numbers every day, this number, that number, I'm out in the real world and I don't see anything. I don't see people, any more sick than they were when they had the flu 2 years ago, or even last year. It's all the same business. It's just another false flag. It's not that there's not a flu, because there's always been a flu. I can remember vomiting and shitting my pants. I had the flu so bad. And that is just a fact of life. It happens and people get the flu. But the fact that people are willing to throw away their lives and willing to throw away other people's lives, people who have money and can afford to be out of work, or people who have jobs that can work from home, they're not that affected by this as much. They think that they're virtuous in doing their part. You need to do your part. And the truth of the matter is that there's a great many people whose voices are not being heard, who are suffering big time. I live in California here, and there's a huge push to push forward Agenda 21, Agenda 30, Agenda 50. And if you're not familiar with Agenda 21, Agenda 30, you should just give it a go for a little bit. Just listen to some of the stuff that's in writing. So when you start to read their own writing and they tell you what they want to do, then this all makes so much sense. There's no more guessing about like, gee whiz, well, what are they after? We know what they're after. They're after a communist life, basically. And we've been taken over a long time ago. These things the slow boil has been happening for quite some time. It's just now that they've conditioned people enough to be able to really effectively implement some of this insane. The other day I was just driving around town and I'm literally just shocked. I never thought I would live a day to see all these Americans. Well, again, they're not Americans anymore. People are United States citizens. That's not an American. That is, your allegiance is to the corporation of the United States. So they have turned everyone from American nationals who are true Americans that believe in freedom, who fought for this country. My grandfather flew 13 combat missions over, Berlin in the final months of the war. He was awarded, he met the Queen because he dropped aid to the victims. And so, he really did his part and really, thought he was, he did it because he thought he was fighting for freedom of America. And where are those patriots now? They have castrated the males in this country. They have misled the females to think that they're the powerful ones and they should forsake families and try to be career women. When the truth is, we need our women to nurture children and bring them up to be good children. We need our men to be strong and to be men. I mean, I can't put it any other way. You know, there is a biological rhythm to this world, to how this world works, and especially for humans and the development of children. And they have turned that upside down. They have promoted, in Hollywood, they promote divorce and rampant sexual promiscuity, and there's enough free porn on. I mean, I don't think there's anything other than free porn out there. Like, why would anyone pay for anything these days? So they've made everything available to keep people from having proper families. And it's kind of weird if I saw a comedian the other day making a joke about how in Indiana, if you're not married by 26, you must be a fag or something. So, that used to be the deal, is that you get married at that age because you're ready to do some humping, you're ready to pop out some babies, and now they've just made it really, really difficult. And that's all by design, so that this country will be divided. Without the family unit, what do you have to fight for? Without the family unit, how do you share information with one another? Right now, the kids believe something completely different than the parents, because they're both divided and taught different things. It is really important that we start trying to get out of the internet, get our heads out of there, like, social media, stuff like that we spend more time in the real world. It is vital to our survival to really focus on being in the real world and to sharing with one another and not being cowards, being courageous to be able to speak our minds and in a gentle, loving way, because a lot of these people that are mind controlled, they will not respond to it very well. And if somebody's not responding well, you move on to the next person. But the idea is that we need to be courageous and stand upon our own morals and our own knowledge of, connection with one another, connecting with nature too. Get out of your house. Do not be in your house. Get out in the sun, get as much sun as possible. We're going into the winter seasons now, so there's not as much sun. That's why it's vital that you get plenty of sun during the summer and build up your vitamin D so your immune system is kicking when you go into the winter season. That's what's really affecting people. Again, I don't see as many people sick. I just don't. But the way that you avoid being sick is to make sure that your vitamin D is topped off during the summer by getting enough sun every single day. Get exercise, stay away from sugar. So, I haven't commented on the election thing yet. So, obviously I made my prediction months and months and months ago, and then I made a follow-up prediction, my last video that I put out, and I still stand upon the fact that they're going to stick that guy back in there. Trump is going to stay in there, is what I believe. Everything tells me that would be the most damage, because these people who forgot about Corona quickly enough to go out there and parade in the street when the media told them that Biden was elected. The board of directors will be the ones to put the new president in power, and to tell everybody that Biden is going to be president, and then to suddenly keep Trump in there will make those people lose their mind. They were already protesting and running in the streets, and now it's going to happen even worse. Because you hear things like Trump won't concede, right? So, I never got into the details about how he was going to remain in the president's seat, but this is a fantastical story. That's why I said he would be back in there, because it's got to be a fantastical story. It's just got to be out of this world. Last year was pretty crazy, or last election was pretty crazy, but this one has to top it. How are you going to top it? Oh, okay, have him say he's not going to leave, or he wins a court case that again, it's not overturning the decision, because there is no decision until the Electoral College casts their votes in January. But people don't know jack shit about how this world works. They don't even understand that it's a corporation in the United States, a de facto corporate government. It's not the de jure American government. But whoever comes into a room and postures tall and claims to be in charge in that room, and if nobody questions it, then guess what? That person's in charge. And that is what's happened with the corporation in the United States. They have flexed and, slowly manipulated people into believing that they are a legitimate government entity, and they're not. You are your own government entity. That's why the Constitution was written, to keep those people in check. That Constitution is not for you, it is for them, okay? But you have to know who you are, and you have to know where you stand in order to be able to stand as a free man or a free woman. If you don't know who you are, then they will decide who you are. If you don't know your rights, you have none. He who can be deceived, let him be deceived. That is a maxim of law. And they use that. If you can be deceived, they're going to deceive you. What's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen to them. Look at them. Look how many times they have robbed, murdered. They destroy other countries, complete countries, and nobody ever goes to jail. Nobody ever gets fined. Nobody ever gets, occasionally they'll get a fine, but they're just paying with your money anyway. So, it's most people don't know who they are. If you're an American, you're an American national. If you were born in one of the 50 states, if you weren't born in Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C. is its own country within a country. If you're not familiar with the District of Columbia, then you need to do a little bit more research and find out what exactly is going on there. Washington, D.C. is not one of the 50 states, because it's not. It's an independent country within a country, just like the city of London within Britain, just like the Vatican. So there is a remedy. The remedy is to start to remove yourself. The remedy is to become the executor over your inheritance accounts, being your Social Security and your birth certificate, which is a certificate of title. Learning how to be your own banker, be your own lawyer, okay? Be your own lawful representative. You want to be your own presenter, okay? You don't want to have a representer that's in charge of your affairs. Because the minute you hire a lawyer, a bank authorized representative, or a brokerage authorized representative, once you authorize a bank representer in a court case, and it's a court of equity, it's commerce, then you are telling the courts that you are ignorant, that you are a ward of the state, you're incompetent. So we have to learn how to do this stuff ourselves. And there's plenty of information out there if you're willing to shut off the Netflix, shut off the Amazon, shut off the news, really put your nose to the grind and start learning this stuff. And most people don't want to do it. The kids are brainwashed into chasing after the hottest new trends and social media and all the things that don't matter. The parents feel like they're just overwhelmed, and it's just too much. And so nobody's ever willing to take the time to really learn how to live as a free American, because there is a place for us in the free world, but we have to learn how to navigate around the system that they have set up, so that we can reclaim what is ours and have financial freedom And then we also need to uncontract with the corporation of the United States. And the uncontracting part takes a while. It's going to take some time because you've got to slowly unravel everything, and you have to learn how to do it. That's pretty much it. And then you have to, through learning how to undo it, you have to never contract with them again. That's how you live in the proper status. And there's a lot of shitty gurus out there that are teaching this stuff. I am not to the point where I would say I'm teaching. I'm trying to encourage people to go and do their own studies. And I find the most value in a gentleman who mysteriously died, of course, 3 years ago, Patrick Devine. There are tons of calls of his out there, and as I listen to the calls and I start to do follow-up research with documents and getting into the law and definitions, I start to realize that this guy really knew what he was talking about, and he didn't ask anybody for money. Again, if you're having success with accessing your accounts and such, you shouldn't be trying to charge people a lot of money to walk them through this process. You don't need $1,000 from somebody up front to help them with a process. If you want to charge them for some of your time on the phone or something like that, I could understand that, sure. Because if they don't pay in some way, then they won't value it. They won't value your time, because your time is valuable as far as you can never get it back again. So I understand that part about it. But to try to make a business out of this where you're a for-profit business doesn't seem right to me. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. But I hope to have more success so that I'll be able to help people as well. Because I believe that God has left us a remedy. He has left us a way to navigate this life. Remember, there's the wide path and there's the narrow path. And the reason it's the narrow path is because not many people are courageous enough to walk down that path. So a path less traveled is a narrow path. And this is definitely a path less traveled. It's much easier to just get on board with everything and just get along with everything and let them take from you, and you just leave me alone. Just let me live my life. They've made cowards out of most people. So anyway, I think Trump will be seated back in there. It's going to be quite a fantastic. I will be shocked if for some reason that they move ahead with this Biden fella. I really don't think that's going to happen. But anything's possible, that's for sure. Anything is possible. But the most damage, I think, would be done by, oops, Trump's back in there. People will lose their minds. I live here in California, and I know that 99% of people here in California will lose their minds. So, and they're so public and just vile about it. They will just, people cried when Trump was voted in the first time. I had clients of mine that had to cancel because they were crying and they were upset. And it's like, what? You psychopaths. So it's a sad state of affairs when people are that sucked into the mind control. Real quick to commerce, okay? We're going into another period here where they are ramping up this ruse again, okay? They're going back to Corona, COVID-19. Oh, we got to shut things down. First of all, go look at my other video where Gavin Newsom cannot mandate jack shit, okay? He tells you, I can't mandate anything. I can only help influence. He tells you, if you have ears to hear, they will tell you exactly the truth. I'm almost done with this movie called Interstate 60. And Patrick Devine, the one that I study with, he suggested Interstate 60. I watched Merchant of Venice, which is a banking movie, and Interstate 60, which also has a lot of truth about banking and other things, the court systems too. There's a huge scene in there about the court systems and how everybody is in on it. Even the lawyers, they don't necessarily understand their role, but their duty is sworn to the courts. So they play their role just perfectly. There's many of them who do kind of know the railroad system, but there's also, I've got friends that are lawyers that genuinely, are trying to do the right thing. But they don't realize that they are bank authorized representatives or brokerage authorized representatives, where they're literally brokering the deal. Remember, justice, okay? Justice has the scales, right? So what it is, justice is an equal exchange. That's what it is. So if they want to try to pin a charge to your straw man, to your fictitious name, which is your all capital name, which is your social security number name, then they're going to put a charge on there. Okay, so all they're looking to do is to equal that out. So how are they going to balance the debt? How are they going to offset that charge? Okay, they want to offset the debt. So you have to be able to release your credit to them. Okay, and when I say credit, I mean the full faith and credit of you as an American national. Or, wherever you're from, this banking system works the same way worldwide, but I'm speaking mostly for us here in America. Even if you're a naturalized citizen, this applies to you. And so the court systems are just simply looking for that debt to be offset. And it's all commercial. They have statutes and codes. I mean, it's different if you harm somebody or their property. Then that is called a mens rea crime. So if you commit a crime, that's different. Then you're going to have to pay the piper. And you can request a common law trial. A common law trial on the record. Everything should always be on the record. Don't ever go into court unless it's on the record. You always ask the judge, who is an administrator, you ask him, is this on the record? Make sure it's on the record. If it's not on the record, don't answer. Okay? And you're a third-party representative for the defendant, because the defendant they have listed is in all capital letters. That's not your name. Your name is not spelled in all capital letters. Period. And if you don't think that's important, what, you think that the court's just messed up? They just, that's just the way we do it? No. It means everything. If you don't know that, then you're ignorant, and you should either go study it, or you should just stop watching what I'm selling here, because you're playing a totally different game. Okay? If you're not willing to understand that, then I cannot help you. Nobody can help you. You're gonna remain in the system and stay in the system, which, if that's what you want to do, you're free to do that. I'm telling you, a lot of people do that. A lot of people learn this information and they still choose to remain in the system because it's too scary for them to try to stand up and learn how to be a free person and be a competent administrator of their own lives. So something I'll touch on again. So they're trying to shut down the world again, right? So they're shutting down, or they are telling people to shut down that are registered organizations, people who went and purchased a license to do business with the state or the city. You should never pay for a right. Okay, you have the right to conduct trade, commerce. Okay. Now, when it gets into commercial commerce, where it's a public entity, either you're registered, that becomes a public industry, a public corporation. Okay, sorry, I was talking a little fast there. So if you go and register or buy a license, you are now a registered public entity, and you are agreeing to abide by their statutes and their codes. Okay, which is why you should never pay for a license or register a business. You, as a natural American, have the right to conduct commerce, trade, independent of that. It's only when you start to do business on the highways that the courts can regulate interstate commerce. You have to understand what commerce is in order to stay away from giving your rights away. Because once you give your rights away, it's a real pain in the butt to get them back. For example, you go ahead and buy that license to get married, for example. Like, you don't have to buy a license to get married. That's ridiculous. That's a contract between you and your spouse. That is not a contract between you, the spouse, and the state. Only a fool would bring in a third person to that marriage. But so many people are doing that because they're like, well, I'll get benefits from the corporation of the United States. Okay, well, if you want to live that life where you're getting benefits, because the minute you get a benefit from them, you are giving away your rights. The only way you can get a benefit is to give away your rights. Okay? Now I'm gonna read this along with you. Commerce, trade contracts, the exchange of commodities for commodities, considered in a legal point of view, legal being statutes and codes. It consists in the various agreements which have for their object to facilitate the exchange of the products of the earth or industry of man with an intent to realize a profit. In a narrower sense, commerce signifies any reciprocal agreement between two persons by which one delivers to another a thing which the latter accepts and for which he pays consideration. If the consideration be money, it is called a sale. If any other thing than money, it is called exchange or barter. Okay, this is a very important part. And again, I'm in Bouvier's Law Dictionary. I can't remember. I think it's edition 7, maybe. So anyway, I'm sure it's similar no matter which Bouvier Law Dictionary you pull up. So if the consideration be money, it is called a sale. Now, if anybody knows anything about House Joint Resolution 192, you know that there is no more lawful money. Okay, they took all the money away. There's only debt exchange now. So everything you do is an exchange or barter. Okay, an exchange or barter. Federal Reserve notes is not money. It is an exchange. It is a bill of exchange. That's why they call it a dollar bill. It's a bill of exchange. It's not money. You will never hear them say pay money. Congress have power by the Constitution to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states. Okay, that's so important right there. Congress have power by the Constitution to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Okay, so the Indian tribes, they put in territories which are controlled by the states. By the way, the Indians need not stay there. They were fooled into believing that they had to stay there. And yes, I know history states that they were marched there by gunpoint. But we all know too that history is changed by the victors. So I can't necessarily say that they were all marched down there by gunpoint. They could have very well been offered a benefit in order to accept the territory. Anyway, I digress a little bit. Let's just stick to what this is saying. Congress have power. That's all assumption by me. I can't say for sure. Okay, I always want to be clear that things I'm just kind of mulling over in my head and things that I actually know. I don't know that about the Indian tribes. I do know at this point though, since I've been alive, they don't have to stay there at all. They usually stay there because they have a community there, they get lots of benefits. And so anyway, Congress have power by the Constitution to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states. Okay, so you have to understand what that's saying. That's saying Congress only regulates foreign nations and among the several states. So then you go, well, what is the several states? So let's just go over here. Among the several states, continuing in Gibbons versus Ogden. Again, all laws based on case law. So if there's a previous decision, this one being by Chief Justice Marshall, then it stands. It is law. Okay, so this one is saying, observed, Chief Justice Marshall observed that the phrase among the several states was not one which would probably have been selected to indicate the completely interior traffic of a state. Okay, meaning one state, a state. So when it says several states, they're not talking about one state. So if you have a commerce within one state, that does not make you part of the several states. It certainly doesn't make you a foreign nation, okay? Because we're still talking about America, the nation. It must therefore have been selected to exclude the exclusively internal commerce of a state. Although, of course, the phrase may very properly be restricted to that commerce which concerns more states than one. It is obvious that commerce among the states cannot stop at the external boundary line of each state, but may be introduced into the interior. The Chief Justice then succinctly stated, that means just simply expresses, it doesn't need to be said in words. He just expressed himself. The Chief Justice then succinctly stated the rule, which, though restricted in some periods, continues to govern the interpretation of the clause. The genius and character of the whole government seem to be that its action is to be applied to the external concerns of the nation and to those internal concerns which affect the states generally, but not to those which are completely within a particular state, which do not affect the other states, and with which it is not necessarily to interfere for the purpose of executing some of the general powers of the government. Now, real quick, I'm just going to pause there and say you have to understand that this definition of commerce is in the law dictionary. It is not talking about United States Code, United States Corporation Code. It's talking about a de jure government, okay? So the de jure government of America is not supposed to mess with anybody's business within the state, you know? And it even says, like, it doesn't draw a hard boundary between states. But that's why it says several states. So if it extends out among several states, several being more than couple, so I think of several more than a few. So a couple, maybe two, a few, three or more, several being like what, 6, 7 or more. So the several states, they're talking about interstate commerce where your business is really reaching out into almost, a part of the nation instead of just an individual man conducting commerce within the state and on his land. Okay. All right. Recognition of an exclusively internal commerce of state or intrastate commerce in today's term was regarded as setting out an area of state concern that Congress was precluded from reaching. Although these cases seemingly visualize Congress powers arising only when there is an actual crossing of state boundaries, this view ignored Marshall's equation of intrastate commerce that affects the states or with which it is necessary to interfere in order to effectuate congressional power with those actions which are purely interstate. So we need to really understand what this is saying. Okay? Law is an exact science. Okay, so if they say intrastate and interstate, they mean intrastate and interstate. Okay? Congress cannot regulate things that go on within the state. Even if it crosses from one state to another, Marshall is saying it's the several states. This equation came back into its own, both with the court's stress on the current of commerce, bringing each element in the current within Congress's regulatory power, with the emphasis on the interrelationships of industrial production to those interstate commerce, but especially with the emphasis that even minor transactions have an effect on interstate commerce, and that the cumulative effect of many minor transactions with no separate effect on interstate commerce, when they are viewed as a class, may be sufficient to merit congressional regulation. Commerce among the states must of necessity be commerce within the states. The power of Congress then, whatever it may be, must be exercised within the territorial jurisdiction of the several states. Okay? The power of Congress then, whatever it may be, must be exercised within the territorial jurisdiction of the several states. Now, here's two things. One, it's saying the territorial jurisdiction. Okay, that specifically refers to the United States corporation. Territory. The power of Congress then, whatever it may be, must be exercised within the territorial jurisdiction of the several states. They cannot regulate people who are working within their state, or even 2 states, or even 3 states. You know, I guess if you get really picky about what the several mean, like how many states does equal several. But basically what this is saying, and all people must understand, that Congress cannot regulate your business, okay? It cannot regulate your business. One, if you don't give them control by registering it with them, there's no reason to register a business with them. You have intellectual property that is yours. There are other ways to protect that intellectual property without registering it with the Corporation of the United States, or even the state of, okay? There are other ways you can protect that, you know, like a trademark, for example. You don't have to register it with them in order to protect a trademark. There are other common law ways to do that. Now, people who don't give up their rights through registration and licensing are therefore completely free to run their businesses as they want, as they see fit. They're not, you know, if you don't have a massive business that is crossing multiple state lines on a daily basis to do business, you are not under the jurisdiction of Congress. You are not under the jurisdiction of all of these fake alphabet soup sub-corporations like the USDA and like the FDA and all that. Those are sub-corporations of the head corporation, United States. You are not bound to their jurisdiction if you're working within your state, unless you've registered and contracted with them, agreed that you want to do that. So all these people who have businesses are free to do their businesses the way they want. Not to mention, there's still not any statutes or codes on the books that you can point to that say, if you don't wear a mask or if you don't shut your business down, this is what we're going to do to you. Because it would have to be laid out in law. It would have to be something you can read. They can't just arbitrarily keep making up, you know, we're going to shut this down, we're going to shut that down. Like I said, you already have it from the horse's ass himself, Newsom, telling you, obviously I'm in California, that's why I keep referencing Newsom, although I think he's quite infamous across the entire nation. But, you know, he himself told you, I cannot regulate, or I'm sorry, I cannot mandate. I can only influence. So they're telling you the truth if you have ears to hear. So that is the most important thing, is to understand what words mean. I go to the law dictionary, you know, and then I go to the legal sites. You know, right now I'm on Cornell's Legal Information Institute. Okay, this is where you cross-reference the information that you have and you get a very clear understanding and overstanding. Overstanding being that you can competently process the information, you know what it is, and then you take power over that information, over the information. Because when the court systems say, do you understand? They are truly saying, do you stand under our authority? And the answer is, hell to the no, no, to the no, no. No, you do not stand under their authority. You stand over their authority with the knowledge that you have. That is what overstanding is. You should know the difference between that two. It doesn't negate the fact that the word understanding simply means you know what it is they're talking about. That is true. You can use that word in two ways. Understanding, yeah, I get it. Copy that. Or in the court systems, understanding mean, do you stand under our authority? So it's important to know which venue you're in when you're using different language, because the legalese language is obviously very different from our everyday language. And they have completely integrated the two so that when you go into a court of commerce, equity, commercial court system, and you're playing in their little sandbox, that they can easily get you to say things that will railroad yourself. That's why the United States is in charge of the federal education system. It is the largest employer in the country. Because if you can just get people to do what you want by putting them in your schools, it saves you a lot of work on the back end. And then now you have a brainwashed country full of people who think they know what the hell they're talking about when they absolutely do not. So, all that being said, I think I've rambled enough for today. I don't want to keep on going right now. I'm gonna get back to the little puppy. So anyway, just keep on learning. That's the best thing you can do. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and if you don't know your rights, you have none. So it's really important to know your rights. And I will keep updating people on my journey. And thank you all for listening. Put your thinking caps on. You desperately need them right now. And don't get caught up in any of this stuff. You know, don't get communities of people around you. Find people who are not mask holes. Find people who think like you, and make good friends with them. It's important to have a community around you. Get out in nature as much as possible. Love your animals. Love your animals and love yourself. All right? Care about you guys, and have a huge, happy Thanksgiving. And I'll see you guys in just a little bit.